Our first speaker is a second-year law school student, Amanda El-Dakhakhni, who happens to be the daughter of a past district governor from Hawaii, Ayman. She couldn't be producer of what Amanda did while at the University of Pennsylvania. She co-founded Jews and Muslims for Freedom, an organization that brings Jews and Muslim students together to do community service and share interfaith discussions among themselves. Her accomplishments listed in the program read like a testament to service above self. Please welcome Amanda El-Dakhakhni, who will tell us about Jews and Muslims finding common ground. Welcome.
Aloha. Thank you so much for the warm welcome, past Rotary International President GI. It's so nice to be back home in the islands and to see so many friendly faces in the audience today. I'd also like to thank the organizing committee for inviting me to speak with you all, and a very special mahalo to all the Hawaiian Rotarians volunteering behind the scenes this weekend to make this conference possible. Please join me in thanking them for their hard work. I wish my good friend Sam Adelsberg could be here with me today. We spoke together at the Rotary Zone Institute in Palm Springs in 2011, but unfortunately he couldn't make it this time. But you can be sure he has a good reason, because anyone in their right mind would jump on the first plane out of the freezing New England cold and into 80-degree weather and Hawaiian sunshine. Sam and I became close friends during college when we traveled together to New Orleans with a group of 11 Jewish and 11 Muslim students. We went there to help build a community in the wake of Hurricane Katrina, but the trip soon turned into a transformative experience that forever changed the ways Muslims and Jewish students interacted back on our own campus at the University of Pennsylvania. Our story of building bridges and finding common ground isn't the first picture I want to paint for you, though. I have to admit, I'm no stranger to Rotary. Growing up, Thursday evenings spent at my dad's club, Honolulu Sunset, were almost as routine as Saturday morning cartoons. I remember sitting listening to the meetings open with the four-way test, and I remember trying to work through exactly what these words I heard all the time actually meant. Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Rotary wasn't just a chance to hang out with my dad and stay out late on Thursday nights, but it introduced me to a world of people who came from backgrounds different from my own. Growing up in Hawaii, a place where so many cultures blend into one, friends are family, and so it's natural to have family who come originally from literally all corners of the globe. By the time I left to go to college on the mainland, I had a support system full of uncles and aunts from all walks of life, but tied together, and to me, through Rotary. I say it jokingly, but it's totally true. Even my graduation party was basically just a Rotary meeting. That's the background that I took with me to college, and it was my experiences with Rotary that inspired the idea for our trip to New Orleans in the first place. During college, I was very active with the Muslim Students Association, but I noticed that it did very little outreach to other groups on campus. But it wasn't just a lack of communication that was a problem. There was a palpable tension between the Jewish and Muslim communities. I remember attending a film screening of a documentary on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and seeing students who didn't even know each other's names argue antagonistically with each other and the guest speaker during the question and answer component. The students became frustrated with each other, a few stormed out in protest, and at least one student attempted to disrupt the entire conversation from even happening by repeatedly turning the lights off and on in the auditorium. Of course, the topic was expected to cause disagreement, but I remember leaving disappointed in my community, in our student community. I wasn't alone, and leaders from the Muslim and Jewish communities met together to address the incident and underlying tensions. What we came up with now, in crazy idea. An intensive service trip to New Orleans where Muslim and Jewish students would work, eat, and live side by side for an entire week. Whether it would work or not, no one knew, but it was worth trying, and the university was willing to sponsor the experiment. Myself and Sam and some of the other trip organizers had planned a series of icebreakers and breakout sessions for once we got there, but we hadn't planned anything for the plane ride over. Students were meeting each other for the first time, and a few minutes before takeoff, two girls in the row right in front of me, one a Palestinian Muslim girl who grew up in a small village outside of Jerusalem, and the other a Jewish girl from Brooklyn, were exchanging small talk. I'm listening and I hear the Palestinian girl say that she's from a small village in Palestine that's famous for its hummus. Suddenly I hear the Jewish girl exclaim, "Your village is famous for its what?" And the Palestinian girl repeats, "It's hummus, it's hummus. We have the best hummus in the Middle East. Everybody loves our hummus." The Jewish girl is clearly getting agitated and responds, "How can you be so proud of a terrorist organization that carries out suicide bombings and kills innocent women and children every day?" I remember thinking to myself, they're just booked the entire trip. The plane hasn't even taken off yet, and this trip is already doomed. When the Palestinian girl jumps in, recognizing the misunderstanding, and says, "No, no, not Hamas, hummus, the dish made of chickpeas." Needless to say, the trip was full of opportunities for learning and dialogue and moments of surprise, even for someone like me who grew up with tons of Jewish family friends and thought I had a basic understanding of the Jewish faith. But there was one particular experience that caught me by surprise on the trip. We had settled in for the evening in our recreational space, the basement of a synagogue in the French Quarter of New Orleans, and we were playing an icebreaker game where someone would read a statement, and if you agreed with it, you would step into the circle. Some of the statements were kosher enough, like, "I believe in one God," and everyone would step into the circle. That was expected. But what happened a few minutes later wasn't. I heard the statement, "I believe Muhammad is a prophet." Without having to think about it, I stepped into the circle, along with the other 10 Muslims and 2 Jews. I lingered in the circle, completely blown away by the fact that across from me were 2 people who agreed with the statement that I testified to every day, that I include multiple times in my daily prayers. In my prayers, not theirs. And I stood there in the circle, just dumbfounded. I asked myself if I could do the same thing, and I wasn't sure if I could. I was inspired by their bravery. This wasn't some anonymous survey, everyone was standing around to watch. And I was partly ashamed of myself because I didn't think I could take the same leap of faith into a different belief system myself. But that's what growth is about, putting yourself in uncomfortable situations, forcing yourself out of your comfort zone. And there's no better way to do that than engaging in communities unlike your own and with people different from you. Of course, this isn't a novel concept for Rotarians. Rotary makes these person-to-person exchanges possible every day, all around the world, from its youth exchange programs to the peace fellowships it provides. Peace is only made possible by relationships between individuals who may otherwise never cross paths if not for organizations like Rotary bringing them together. And that was what I realized, that what we were doing in that synagogue in New Orleans didn't need to stop when we left for Philadelphia. The incident was positive and powerful, with tremendous transformative capacity. If even a few of us can find common ground in the very beliefs that are supposed to separate us and fundamentally distinguish us from each other, there's a lot of hope in that. Our service trip to New Orleans completely changed the interfaith landscape that month. In school, I started an organization called Jews and Muslims for Philadelphia, or JAM for Philly for short, with a friend of mine. A new friend, one of the 2 Jewish students who stood across from me in that circle back in the synagogue in New Orleans. One Sunday a month, we would get a group of Muslim and Jewish students together to paint and clean houses for low-income families who needed the extra help. And on other Sunday mornings, we hosted what we called jam sessions, open dialogue forums to discuss issues affecting our communities in a relaxed, comfortable environment. A few months after we founded Jam for Philly, I found out about a series of protests on campus being planned by two very different organizations. Penn Zionist Freedom Alliance was planning a demonstration to protest another student organization, Penn for Palestine, because it was planning to participate in a Philadelphia-wide event called Israeli Apartheid Week. Within hours, plans for one protest turned into plans for two protests, when Penn for Palestine decided to launch a counter-protest to the protest protesting the first protest. I called up the Jewish student who started Jam for Philly with me, and we scheduled an emergency meeting with the presidents of both organizations. We basically just locked them up in a room and had them talk out their differences, with the two of us acting as negotiators. A few hours later, they came to an agreement. There would be no protest. If it weren't for that one solid friendship that I made through our trip to New Orleans and through Jam, I don't think the issue would have been diffused so easily and so quickly to the benefit of everyone. The trip to New Orleans and Jam really reinvigorated the interfaith landscape on campus and opened a new, brighter chapter for Penn's Jewish and Muslim communities. We went from officially scheduled once a semester Muslim-Jewish Friday night dinners at the Hillel Jewish Community Dining Hall to having Jewish and Muslim students spontaneously grabbing lunch together between classes. When that became the new social norm, that's when I knew we had achieved something powerful. In fact, when I went back to campus for the first time after I graduated, my first stop was Hillel, the Center for Jewish Life on campus. I'd just gotten off the train from DC and I was walking, pulling my luggage behind me, when I saw my friends inside celebrating Shabbat. They waved me inside, and just the basic backdrop of that scene, Muslims celebrating the Sabbath with Jews, not to mention the few hours I was there just catching up with friends I hadn't seen since graduating, was a scene that just would not have played out the same way before we worked together to bring our communities together in the years leading up to that moment. Of course, the Israeli-Palestinian peace process is often the pink elephant in the room in any kind of Muslim and Jews finding common ground conversation. Working towards an acceptable solution for Israelis and Palestinians is certainly a challenge for our generation to meet. But I believe reaching a solution is about working for peace, one person at a time. We can argue with each other until we're blue in the face about where borders should be drawn and if and where refugees have a right to return. But I don't think that conversation will get us very far if we haven't developed a very basic human respect and love for one another. No one person in this room is going to solve the Israeli-Palestinian problem. But we can create forums for dialogue that's necessary to foster goodwill and better friendships among the individuals affected by and invested in the conflict. And it's the strength and depth of those person-to-person relationships that provide the foundations for the path to peace. So my final message to all of you today is that no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, no matter what you believe in, you can play a role in bringing our world one step closer to peace. And my message to Rotary and Rotarians is, please don't stop doing what you're doing. My generation can't continue the path to peace without the work that's being done by Rotary today. I truly believe that if there's ever peace on earth, Rotary will be a part of making it possible. Thank you, Mahalo.